Snowline Gold Corporation has been drilling this valley target at their Rogue project in the Yukon since early 2022, and they have yet to release a resource estimate. And what we'd like to do is really take all this drilling information that they have released and try and guess what a reasonable resource estimate would be. And to do that, we'll use Interceptor. We're going to use the gold module for Interceptor. And what's required of us is some statistics calculated from all this drilling data that the company has released. So we need to know what the mean grade, mean length, interval count, depth, and hole count for all these intercepts that Snowline has released for this property. And I've already done that, but the idea is to go to these press releases and look for a table like this. And this table just summarizes the highlight drilling that they've done recently, and we need to pull that data and then go back in time and look at all the news releases for the last 2 years, really, and collect that data, and from it calculate these statistics. So I've gone ahead and done that, and I happen to know that of all that data for this valley target, the average grade for all those intercepts is 3.6 about. The average length is for those intercepts is pretty long at 200 meters. They've got a total of, 116 intervals reported so far, and mean depth of fairly shallow, 66.3 meters. And in total, they've reported intercepts for 44 holes. Once those numbers in, we just hit submit, and the machine learning predictive models in the background are going to take that information and then make a guess as to what the average grade and, the grade and the tonnage of a resource might be. And since it's really a range of possibilities, we're giving you multiple numbers here. So in this summary table, we'll see base case, upside, and downside cases for the grade and tonnage. The base case is, just using this data we've supplied, is about 1.39, call it 1.4 grams per ton. And the base case for the tonnage is about 80 million tons. Now those are just the base case numbers. There's one value that's reasonable, but you can get lucky in some cases. You can get unlucky, and you really like to know, well, what happens? You know, what does it mean to get a little bit lucky on grade, say, or on tonnage? And that's what these upside cases are. So 1.82 would be, a reasonable, still a rational value for the grade, but it just requires them getting a little bit lucky. And on the tonnage side, the upside case here is, I'm showing it at about 140 million tons. But with the upside, there's also downside. I mean, maybe this doesn't turn out as well as were hoping. What is a reasonable downside scenario? And here we're showing about a gram per ton for the grade, and call it 43 million tons for the tonnage, resource tonnage. So if you want to get a little more in depth with, you're going to look at these charts here to get a little more detailed perspective. And what you have in this blue histogram really represents the distribution of all the data used to train these predictive models. So I've got gold resources for lots of different properties that are in the training set. and they all have their own unique gold grade. And this blue histogram on this chart shows you how those grades are distributed. And it's a wide range. Very typical value would be right about that 2 gram per ton grade, but there are much higher grade deposits, a little more rare, but you can reach, in this case, I'm showing 10 grams per ton, sitting at that 98th percentile, or you got a 98% chance that a resource is going to be that great or lower, 2% chance that it's going to be higher than 10 grams. And then you have the low end too, say a 0.5 gram per ton resource would be on the low end of the spectrum. And then this green line really is the predicted uncertainty about grade, resource grade, when using this information in these fields here. It's a much tighter distribution because we have all this information. We're starting to paint this picture of where the resource is going to land, and this distribution really represents where we think this resource is going to end up. You can interrogate this line by moving the cursor over it. We can see here at the peak of the distribution, really the 50th percentile, we're seeing that base case estimate of 1.39 grams per ton. And the upside case is really the 75th percentile, so I can move my cursor down, see that 1.82. And then the downside case is really the 25th percentile. So 25th percentile, I'm saying, one chance in 4 really that you're going to hit 1 gram per ton on the resource or less. So that's interesting enough, but I think for this particular case, for Snowline, we've got, I think the resource tonnage distribution is a little more interesting. Same setup here, we have the raw data distribution in this blue histogram. And then you can see this green line, this green bell curve, where we're showing really what is our certainty around Snowline's valley target. And we can see that, relatively speaking, it's going to be a larger tonnage resource, I believe. The P50 estimate is about that 80 million tons. But it could be higher. It could be to hit the 75th percentile of 140 million tons. And I tend to believe that it's going to be higher than my base case estimate. And the reason is I just did a little more looking, a little more investigation into this thing, looking particularly at the spatial distribution of the drilling and the grade that they're finding in that drilling. And that's looking at this map view here. That's what we're seeing is how that grade is spatially distributed. And that starts giving me some information about the deposit. One thing it's really telling me is this is a highly continuous deposit. It's not all broken up by a uh, chaotically distributed zones of low or poor or unmineralized material, which is often the case in some other gold deposits. So I kind of tend to think that, hey, look, this thing's going to be probably pushing on the high side of this distribution, and I'm suspecting that maybe this upside case, given that other information I have, is more appropriate. And so where would that land us? So if I just do the math here at 1.39 grams per ton times, let's say 140 million tons, that's almost 200 million grams, but we can convert that to ounces. So somewhere north of 6 million ounces, it seems perfectly reasonable for this. So yeah, it's a pretty significant deposit. So there you go. There's a look at how Interceptor works. Thank you very much.